And good morning. Still here in Virginia Beach. I got one more day, decided to extend, waiting for my license paperwork to pan out over in Arizona. For some reason, it's taking a little bit longer than usual. Anyway, this video, again, like my last video, where I was talking about your replacements. And so just recently, as of I believe it was May 31st, is when this article coming out of Chicago. And of course, Chicago Council approves 51 million in funding to address quote unquote migrant crisis. So you have the quote asylum people who are quote unquote seeking asylum according to the article, and of course they've earmarked for housing for these individuals. This is for 1 month. This is only for the month of June. This just passed. This just passed. Of course, under Democrat Lori Lightfoot's regime. And it goes on to state that they've passed a 51 million budget amendment on Wednesday that aims to address the needs of the migrant and asylum seekers in Chicago. And this is just funny because you have in many of these black neighborhoods where they've basically, a lot of these places turned to shit. And they've always got their hand out for a welfare check of some sort. And of course, the big talk was recently, especially if you're paying attention to what's going on in California, which was about reparations. And it's just funny to see how obviously the government knows that these people work lockstep with the government, right? They vote like 90 something percent Democrat, right? So they always vote socialism. Black Americans always vote for socialism, especially black women. So we don't need to give you reparations. It's a nice talking point, if ever we need to kind of lure you back in and just kind of like re-indoctrinate you, make sure that you're still on track, right? Make sure you're still going in the right direction. They just throw out reparations, right? And then of course it gets to stir. We're gonna get some more welfare, and of course all these people get all worked up about how much 2 million or we get 5 million. We should get 500 million. You hear all these ridiculous numbers from California of all places. Right? California is the number one welfare state in America. It's like between New York and California, they're like this, like neck and neck in terms of welfare. And of course, when you wonder why those states are the way they are, it's overwhelmingly related to welfare. Just look at any Native American reservation. Number one issue is welfare. There's no reason for these people to work. And even though they have stuff, they have land, they don't cultivate the land, they get money, they blow it. Drug abuse is so high. That's why you see homelessness and drug abuse in many democratic cities. Right? Just look at New York. New York just recently passed. I remember because I had been away for a while, and I went back in April for like a little bit. And I'm walking around the street, and I'm like, what's that smell? It's like, it smells like marijuana. And then I remembered that they passed the law that it was okay. So I was just recently back in New York for a couple of days. Everywhere you go, that's what you smell. And of course, it's, they give the people this to kind of, their life is shit. We're going to keep these people happy, keep them docile. Let's medicate them, right? Let's mass medicate them. So we're going to do the pharmaceuticals. We're going to do a little bit of marijuana, whatever drugs we need to give these people or allow these people to do. Go right ahead. I don't know if I did a video talking about this, but I often had this conversation with many medical doctors because a lot of them wanted to know to get into something as like an entrepreneur because I was working at the hospital, but I also worked as a private nurse in the city and I offered companion care, right? Um, so I often talked about entrepreneurship. So many doctors wanted to know, well, what can I do, basically start a business. I was like, well, if you do a little bit of research, just in the Upper East Side of East Harlem, right? In the span of about 8 to 10 blocks, there are like 21 to 23 methadone clinics. That's because of the overwhelming drug abuse, right? On any given day, because I used to cover the Upper East Side, which is where I lived. I used to cover the Upper East Side all the way up into Harlem, and I'd cover all the way, downtown into the East Village. And I did home care and I did hospice. And so whenever I would go to like Harlem and going to 125th and Lexington, it's like a psych ward. I went back when I hadn't been there for a while, and I was walking uptown, and in broad daylight, early in the morning, you can walk down 125th Street, and you'll see people doing drugs right in the street. The police van right on the corner. They don't care. And of course, there's a methadone clinic to deal with the withdrawals, right? So this is what you do. This is how you create business, right? This is how you create business. You let these people fall into disrepair, into disrepute. They basically are strung out on diseases, and then when you redirect those people to a clinic or a hospital for care, they go right back out on the street. More than likely, it's the government involved with selling them drugs. We send them right back to the hospital. This is how you deal with people, right? This is what often happens where people don't have anything to live for. This typically happens very much in socialized nations. You see widespread use of drugs because there's nothing else to do, right? There's nothing else to do. Everything is given to you, everything that you need. You're going to get food. They're going to give you some handouts, some welfare checks. People on the street are going to give you a couple of dollars. You're going to get food from somewhere. The church is going to hand out socks and underwears and stuff like that. So it's like, realistically speaking, these people don't have anything worth living, but their life is so miserable that they end up just getting involved in drug abuse. I saw this overwhelmingly when I was in North Dakota. It was the first time I had met actual Native Americans, and just talking with the locals and what was it like, working on the reservations for many of these nurses during COVID. And they were like, oh, it's abstract poverty. And I'm like, how? They have all this land. Why don't they cultivate the land? They get money from the government. And it's just welfare, unfortunately. Unfortunately, this is what happens with welfare, that you continue in this direction. And so ironically, for the people who have been asking for, handouts all this time in places like Chicago. Hold on one second. I keep getting a call. Let's stop this call. Maybe they'll stop calling me. That of course this money, and this is just for 1 month, basically equals about $5,000 per person, because there's about 10,000 quote unquote asylum seekers that are getting this money. And so they've earmarked $51 million for the budget. Of course, it passed overwhelmingly 34-13, right? And it goes on to state, it says, I think this is a real unfortunate situation for everybody. Of course, black people are not happy in that neighborhood because they were like, this money should go to us, right? This money should go to us. And that's always the case. Whenever there's welfare being handed out, like Ukraine getting money or other countries getting money, Americans are always like, that money should go to us. And it's just really, they just want more welfare. It's not that they want to work for that money. They just want that money given to them as a form of welfare. It is what it is. There's nothing that's going to change the direction of the hospital. Change the direction of the course of the nation. We're going to continue in this road until America eventually falls into abstract poverty. America will fall into abstract poverty at this rate, especially with what's going on in the nations, right? With the quote unquote de-dollarization. But in the long run, this is the goal. This was George Soros had talked about this. He did a video talking about this, I think back in 2021 or 2022, where his goal, of course, was to remove the dollar as the world reserve. And of course, it was through manipulation. But it's just funny seeing all these individuals that are coming across the border, getting the welfare and the quote unquote reparations that many of these people wanted. I mean, who was it? You have a black mayor in New York earmarking 4.2 to 4.3 billion just for housing for these individuals coming across the border. And of course, these people are coming across illegally, right? They're not filling out any paperwork. They're just coming across the border. And they're like, hey, come on in. So they don't have to give it to you anymore because they already realize that they own you. And that's what COVID showed, right? Think about it. From the standpoint of the right, you had Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton that were in the running, right? During this time period. This is all planned out, right? Do you think people on the right would have taken the jab if Donald Trump did not win? Think about that. Would the people on the right, if Hillary Clinton, this whole scenario that played out during 2019, 2020, and 21, 22, etc., had panned out under Hillary Clinton, do you think the people on the right would have taken the vaccine? No. Of course, everybody praised it, Operation Warp Speed, which is all bullshit. It's all nonsense. They needed a Donald Trump in office to solidify. We need the agenda to move forward. How do we get these people on board? Well, we got to give them a figurehead, right? We got to bring in a Trojan horse. And then, of course, as soon as that Trojan horse accomplished what he needed to, right, then they brought in the fall guy. You got the Biden, right, who can take all the heat for all the shit that started under Donald Trump, right? Because he didn't drain the swamp as he promised. He was responsible for most of the money printing that was under his administration. He printed like $4 trillion under his administration. He locked down the nation. He even pushed Governor DeSantis to re-lock down Florida after they locked down because it was making him look bad. And now you see what's going on with him now. Even after all the information that's come out about the jab, he's still pro-jab. Why? Because he's part of the agenda. He is part of the agenda. Okay, don't get me wrong. I voted for him in the past. And it was the first time I had voted. And then I voted again in 2020. Didn't matter. I'm voting in New York. It's not like he's gonna flip Democrat from Democrat to Republican. But in any event, all this stuff is just all part of it, all part of the agenda. They put in front of you who they need to put in front of you to get you to go in the direction that they want you to go. Now, all of this, of course, is resolved with personal responsibility. If you had your own plot of land, if you had your own business, if you were homeschooling your children, then much of what they were threatening people with, you can't have a job in our businesses, your kids can't go to our schools, you can't come to our facilities for to buy food. I grow my own food. I run my own business. I homeschool my kid. Right? What they threaten you with is personal responsibility. That's why ain't none of those people when I talk about the Hasidic Jews, the Mormons, the what's it called, the Amish, right? None of these religious groups took that. They all went a different route. Went about their business. The people who passed away were typically elderly, which is natural, and they moved on. They moved on with their lives. They weren't out there, walking around like this for 2 years. They didn't do any of that. But for most people who are completely connected to the system, they're completely reliant on the system. Those are the people that fall for this stuff. And so they already know we don't have to worry about giving Americans this sort of welfare. We got the next batch that are coming into the plantation that are going to serve our needs. We already have these people. These people are getting phased out. We'll do what we need to do for them, but we got a new group of people that we got to indoctrinate. And that's why you see them going for the children, right? With all this rainbow pride stuff, right? We need to indoctrinate the next generation, and we need to take care of that next group of adults that are going to help pay for the welfare, right? We need new workers on the plantation. We're going to tax them, and we're going to pay for this welfare that's going to be next to worthless. And it is what it is. But these are the steps of that America's going to go in this route. You're going to see massive poverty in America like you've never seen before. If you think it's bad now, in a few years, it's only going to get worse. Because as less people are willing to work, you got 70 million baby boomers that are going to be retiring, right? What's going to happen to the workforce? What's production in America going to look like? Many of the people that I work with in the hospitals, especially that work in like engineering, they're all old men. Many of the people that work in automotives, that work in the water plants, that work just in the jobs that are necessary, they're all old men. And there's nobody there coming behind them to fulfill the needs. That's why you see the border open, because the people that we have either don't want to work or we don't have enough people. So hence, we got to pull more people onto the plantation. It is what it is. This is the direction the country is going to be moving, and nothing's going to stop that outside of mass people coming together, working together, and deciding that they're going to be responsible for themselves. We're going to take responsibility for our women. We're going to take responsibility for our children. We're going to take responsibility for our health. I don't need to worry about going to your hospitals. Most of the people that died as a result of being intubated, right? Most of those patients, that study came out, intubating all these people from Desiree did nothing, the Poke did nothing. So all the people that were putting their hope in the institutions, it did absolutely nothing for them. It did absolutely nothing for them. If anything, it cost them their lives, because all those people that got intubated all died, all of them, and that's what all the studies point to. All those patients that they intubated, that was the science. They all died. They all died as a result. It is what it is. This is why I always talk about personal responsibility. When people and groups decide to take personal responsibility, then things will change. When you completely become reliant upon somebody else, especially the government, all you get is welfare and poverty. It is what it is. Anyway, I'm off to the beach. It is a better day than yesterday. Yesterday was cloudy. It started to rain. And I was like, damn, it's my last day. Really didn't want my last day to be, especially because I was busy. So, heading to the beach in a little bit. It's nice and sunny. It's going to be, I think, 86 today. And then hopefully making the drive to Arizona. Anyway, thanks for watching. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.